Welcome back, everybody. Holla Family Podcast. We are back for another week. Everybody is feeling good. Glad to be back here. My name is Finesse. Ready to come at y'all with some great new topics. Also, we got your boy Feast for Thought on the line. Feast, what's happening?
Everything's good, man. I know it's been a little while, but we're back. Another week. Some new topics to cover, man.
Right. All right. We also got Shameless Logic in the back over there. What's going on, Shameless?
What's going on, everybody? I don't know. It's been a little while, like he said before, but you know what I mean? Let's get into it right now. Yeah. I'm feeling a little down, but whatever. Let's do
it. Monday be like that, so. Yeah. All right, cool. So, couple recent topics. Two of them, we decided to slice the podcast up in two today. The first thing we're going to talk about is the boy Dame Dash and his interview he did with the Breakfast Club. It's getting a lot of reactions, a lot of retweets, a lot of conflicting feelings about it. Some people on Dame's side, some people feel like Dame is crazy, some people feel like he's speaking the gospel. Also, there is another topic that we're going to get at once we're done talking about Dame and Charlemagne and the Breakfast Club and Envy and all that. We're going to get into Stephen A. Smith and also his ideas of what of the voting process. Also, he mentioned some comments about how black people should vote Republican. Also, some people would label Stephen A. Smith and Charles Barkley and Bill Cosby and other people in a certain category of for lack of better words, coons. People who specialize in respectability politics and bashing black folks to push themselves up a little bit higher. Pretty much shucking and jiving, trying to make sure, well, black people need to do this and black people need to do that. So that's another, word. So we're gonna get into that too. Even though there are some interesting perspectives on that. So let's start it out first. Dame Dash, Rockefeller, former Rockefeller Records man. Went on the Breakfast Club not too long ago. Got on the line with, actually was in studio with Charlemagne, DJ Envy, and from the get-go of the whole, I think it was 2 hours or hour and a half interview he had over there, he was firing on all cylinders, man. They asked him about Jay-Z, he flipped out. It was like, yo, I'm done talking about Jay. If you want to look for that story, go look it up online. Everybody knows that story already, which I definitely respected. And then also he talked a lot about entrepreneurship. His number one thing there was saying that, honestly, like black folks, not black folks, but like people who have been working, particularly black folks who've been working for somebody for like 25 years doing the same thing. You're a fool. Being an employee is dangerous. You know what I mean? You need to be putting your money somewhere that you can pass something down to your children. He said, I do it for my kids. My son owns a restaurant. He's trying to own. He's not trying to work for somebody else. I never worked for somebody else. So just want to get some opening thoughts about how y'all felt on that feast. I know you definitely had some opinions on that. I wrote a long blurb on Facebook about it, but feel free to go in.
Oh yeah, well, I know I know how you feel because you called me right after I sent it to you. But yeah, man, people just got too caught up in the messenger and not the message. And no, to be fair, a lot of people did catch the right message, of self-employment, self-empowerment, and economic freedom. You know what I'm saying? That's the overall purpose. And everyone's getting all bent out of shape about his delivery, and he's very combative and stuff like that. And and I think people that do have jobs, they basically took it like in an oversimplified viewpoint. And so when that happens is then people start going and make everything a slippery slope. Like, oh, so you're trying to see paramedics and doctors, that's not a respectable job because they have a boss. And it's just like, people are just going to try to find contradictions and trying to easily find the best oversimplification to make a straw man and basically justify how come they're not progressing to their full potential. And I think what Dame did is wake people up because that's very important. You know what I'm saying? Especially for the black community where we don't have an economic base. We don't have an economic foundation. You know what I'm saying? And so it's good that he said yo, you should feel dumb or you should feel weak like just thinking you're gonna work for a company for 30, 40 years, especially in the way the economy works nowadays. So it's like he really woke people up, and I'm glad he did it. And let's just take away the positive from what he was saying, and not so much at every little nuance points you disagree with. So.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go. I took a. It's I think me and you were actually like on polar opposite to that. I will admit that I did for the first initial reaction. I did kind of look at Dame and attack Dame. My whole idea was that Dame was in this interview, and I really got offended when he kept taking the stance that like a real man does this and a real man does that. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, man, like this whole "you not a real man" thing to me is just like, you know, the whole not true Scotsman fallacy thing. You know what I mean? Like you're not a true Christian if you don't. Yeah, you're not a real man.
Real quick for this. Yeah, you did bring up like the moral authority thing, and I did agree with you on that point. Where you're like, he was trying to be like the moral authority for like being a man and all that stuff. And yes, that's a good argument. I can kind of see that. Like, you're not really the arbiter of, you know, of manhood and the natural order of things and the natural instinct of sexes. So like for you to just tell people, oh, you're not a man, or you're a, you know what I'm saying, it's kind of like,
Yeah, it really turned me off because he was just like basically pointing fingers and saying like, y'all ain't shit to everybody who was on the Breakfast Club. And I'm sitting there and then it got to a point where you see Envy even got really, really angry, and you know, he was getting offended. And when he said something to Envy where he was like, yo, would you come work for me? And Envy said yes. I'm like, dude, like he's reaming you right now. You just say no to hold your pride. Like, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't feeling that. I wasn't feeling the way that he came on there and he just kind of like came at everybody. It didn't seem like he was really trying to, like, I felt like it was a lot of ego involved there. And I will say that I missed a lot of the positive things he said just because he made me so angry with the way that he came across.
That's the problem when you, and like I said, you don't have to package and present everything the most PC way to make everyone feel comfortable, because when you do it like that, most people ain't even gonna hear what you're saying. So like it's good to be bashful a little bit just to get your point across. But when your personality starts to interject in the overall message and people miss the message, then you're being like counterintuitive. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I one thing that was a major part that I didn't agree with was when he kept saying that like, oh, like, you know, he made the comment that, you know, you're a slave if you're working for somebody else or something like that. And then Kanye also, I think in the past, he had the song about new slaves and was talking about slavery when he was on his whole his radio podcast, and radio rants that he was going on like a year ago. And it just makes me mad because I feel like when I look at, you know, the way that somebody wants to live their life, I'm all about giving people choices, giving people tolerance, you know what I mean? Not saying that you have to do this to be, you know, doing things the right way. And I'm like, it's cool if you believe that, but there's a lot of people out there who would rather not own a business and would much rather be an employee because of the freedom of like, oh, I don't want to be the guy who manages the accounts and the staff and all that. I just want to be the person who makes the music. You know what I mean? I just want to be the person who does the meetings, or I just want to be the person who sells the product. I don't want to be the guy having to deal with a board of directors, or, you know what I mean, or something around that, you know what I mean, that level, you know, and that's freeing to a lot of people.
And it is. And I think it is for sure. My bad to cut you off, but I just thought of two things, like two people I work with, like they were self-employed before they got the job at the company that I'm at now. And so, like, you know, even one of my coworkers saying, like, he made real good money, you know what I'm saying, doing this self-employed thing. But after a while, like, it's just the stress still wore on him. So, you know what I'm saying? So, like, he went and got a job, you know what I'm saying? And then our IT director had his own business in New York City, moved back to Florida, got a job, you know what I'm saying? So, like, yo, it works both ways. Some people leave their job to go pursue self-employment. Some people have the self-employment around, they come get a job. So, like, it doesn't make you less than a man either or. You know what I'm saying? But just get to that potential and just understand like what options you have. You know, and I think like Dame was trying to get across to Envy and Charlamagne, like, yo, y'all are mad popular. Everybody cares about what you guys think or say. They all listen to you. You don't need Clear Channel Radio to broadcast anything. You don't need them. If you like if you really put y'all minds together, y'all could create y'all content, y'all could give game, and y'all could get advertisers to back it y'all easily. You know what I'm saying? Y'all have the reach. Like, y'all been in the game for this long. Like, you guys should be able to do the things on your own. I think that's what Dame was primarily trying to say. Like, y'all been in this game so long. Envy's 15 years. Charlamagne's 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Y'all have reach. So.
You're shameless. What's your kind of view, I guess, on the overarching theme of, like, working for somebody else versus, you know, stepping out and doing your own thing, I guess?
Shameless.
Yeah, my bad about that.
Oh, I was about to say, I thought we lost you for a second.
Yeah, I kind of coincide with the both of you because being self-employed is not for everyone. Even though there are a lot of benefits to it, there are also a lot of benefits to working for somebody else because like you said before, Feast, that a lot of stress comes in when you have everything on your shoulders. So when you work for somebody else, although you are not at the position at the top, you also have a lot of freedom to be able to do whatever it is that you could do best, and you can focus on that instead of like managing so many things that you have no idea about. So where I think where Dame went wrong about it is everybody knows that Dame Dash, he's a very boastful person. So when he talks, he doesn't have the ability to, you know, compromise and make people feel like, okay, maybe I should listen to this guy. He just sounds like he's like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. You need to get on my level, type of, you know, accent. Like that's how he talks, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to hear somebody who's passionate, but at the same time wants you to be like, listen, I'm trying to help you out. You know what I'm saying? Like I know what happened. I have my experiences. I'm trying to give it to you. And like, I guess when he talks, because there were a lot of memes. I don't know if you guys seen the video meme where it was like, it was like at this point Jay-Z knew he couldn't fuck with these niggas no more.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking
about. And it was like Dame Dash and Bleak on the back. Jay-Z is getting interviewed, and they're like shouting in it like, oh yeah, we this, we that. It was blah 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 blah. Like, yo, chill out. Like, you see Jay-Z, he's mad embarrassed. And like, sometimes you can understand when people make moves on their own, because people like that turn you off. And that's the type of person Dame Dash is. Even though he's very successful, he knows what he's doing. He's very intellectual. Like, sometimes his personality is not the best, and nobody's gonna want to work with that. So when he talked to like Charlamagne and Envy kind of got offended because he was telling them, oh yeah, can you just walk out anytime you feel like? Are you gonna get fired? Of course he's gonna get fired. He needs a job. Like, not everybody could tell themselves, okay, I'm gonna start my own thing and make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So even though Dame Dash is very successful, he has a point where, you know, you work for yourself in order to work for your name and your family, so they can have something and they don't have to go through the struggles of working for somebody else. But at the same time, not everybody has that opportunity. That's a very minority fact or percentage. It's probably like 10% out of everybody that actually makes it out on their own and like continues to do it and become wealthy for their families and generations to come. So for him to be like, oh, you ain't a man if you call somebody else boss. Like, sometimes you have to call somebody else boss so you can get to that level of boss in the future.
Yeah, and one thing that bugged me out was I think that there's some blame that has to go on the Breakfast Club staff, because when you're like, I work in marketing, so my whole brain always functions on like effective communication, like back and forth conversation. So like, if you have somebody like Dame Dash on your show, you know when things start escalating the way they did, and they got out of hand so quick. It started with the Jay-Z question. They really like set off the worst tone possible. And when it escalated that fast, like, it's your job that you got to be able to seize control again of your own show. And they lost it. From like the first 5 minutes, it was Dame Dash's show. It was no longer the Breakfast Club. It was Dame Dash featuring the Breakfast Club. And if they could have brought him down a notch and got it back to like a really, really calm conversation, I think they could have went back and forth successfully with Dame and came to some type of common ground. But the way that it got, everybody was getting defensive. Everybody was like really combative, and nobody was really listening. It turned into a big, you know, theatrical thing that, you know, spread like wildfire. And I really didn't feel like Charlemagne and DJ Envy. Angela Yee just kind of kept her mouth shut, but like I didn't feel like none of them did a really good job.
Yeah, it was and it was horrible question. Like they wasn't really doing their diligence about gathering the right information to have a good dialogue with him. You know what I'm saying? Because like he has a lot of material out there that if you just watch, you can understand what he's talking about. So like when they asked the question about Jay-Z, that made no sense to me because it's like, yo, he just explained on Sway why he's not touching that. He's explained it on his own radio show that he was coming out. He explains that your job is to listen to that. So you asking that Jay-Z question didn't make any sense.
I mean, I feel like Dame Dash, even though like we were saying, Finesse, that if they could tone him down, I don't think Dame Dash is the type of person who's gonna tone down when you try to compromise. I think he wants to have the limelight. That's the type of person he is.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I just look at somebody like a Combat Jack, and I see the way he conducts his interviews, and it's really intellectual. It's real, like, granted, he gets the same content that you would get at a Breakfast Club, but he does it in a more graceful type of way. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if I'm in a room with Dame, when I have somebody with that crazy, super alpha dog personality, I'm not really trying to beef with him on his ideas. I'm just trying to let him express his ideas, and then after that, talk about, all right, well, what's your opinion on this alternative to that versus like what you're talking about. But I hear what you're saying because it's hard because Dame didn't actually answer many questions on there. Like a lot of times they would ask him a question, and then he would kind of flip it around, and then he would turn it.
Just like we were like, oh, didn't you work for Def Jam? No, we didn't work for Def Jam. Like,
to be fair though, he didn't though. You know what I'm saying?
I understand that, but there are many points where he was trying to.
And I was just about to say the thing I didn't like is when he started trying to tell Envy his relationship with his own kids. I didn't like it. I was out of bounds. Like,
come on, man.
Like, how you gonna start telling him like, don't worry about his family. You know what I'm saying? Unless you know what I'm saying, you're not there with him. You don't know his relationship. However you perceive it or what you heard, like you don't need to be speaking about that man's family like that because you don't know them like that. So I thought he was I thought he was really out of bounds for even commenting on his family like that, and what he has, what he invests in, because my thing is, like I've heard Envy's been on Combat Jack. He was talking about how he was doing DJ stuff and how easy it was for him to flip houses. Like, so he's been in real estate. You know what I'm saying? I've heard him talk about that in interviews. You know what I'm saying? So it's like. Stuff like that, like, yo, dog, you don't know everything. Like, he could be working but he could be flipping houses on the side and making a killing. You know what I'm saying? You don't know that. Mm-hmm. So like, it was just out of bounds for him to try to like talk to him about his family situation or his finances. You know what I'm saying? Just making these wild accusations and assumptions about his stuff. But I did like when he just came at Charlemagne for his nonsense. Mm-hmm. The whole. He tried to slick, because it was like Finesse, you were saying like how he like Charlemagne will try to stir the pot with some bullshit,
always
with some speculation, and try to get you to react to it. And I love how Dame shut it down. Like, oh, are you just gonna try to tell me something about somebody else said about me without naming the person? Like, what kind of shit is that?
That's his job, though.
Yeah, Charlemagne. Sometimes people need to check him, yo, because he be ODing. He lost me when I realized he wasn't a really good dude. Because I first thought he was cool, and then when that whole thing with Lil Mama, when he made her cry on air, I was like, yo, man, like, you just, like, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't, like, he's basically, I don't care about none of y'all. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, he's
extremely selfish person.
It sucks though because like, I think he's not lost. I think he's a dude that busts his ass to get where he's at, and it's paid off for him. But I think what happens is, successful black people that work their way up and they get isolated, and so more and more of your counterparts are white. You know what I'm saying? You see more of your bosses are white, and so it isolates you. And I think for Charlemagne, from his background, coming from where he's come, he's a guy who didn't even go to college, and he's in the position he's in. So like, I don't think he's really had that real life experience with the white business side of things, and so he's ingratiating himself with he's integrated with white, with white culture and stuff like that, and this is what happens. You start making outlandish comments about African Americans. You know what I'm saying? One thing I couldn't stand about what he was saying one time was like, yeah, cops should arrest more black people because, yeah, they commit more crimes, without even taking in consideration the system that oppresses black people to where they're targeted for more crimes, and not understanding the significance of skewed statistics that lend itself to those kind of disproportionate incarcerations of black people. Like,
I hate to cut you off, but that transitioned us perfectly into the next part of the show, which is basically like the whole Coon thing and like respectability politics. And Charlemagne is somebody I think I would identify with, as at times he can be very much a Coon, and somebody who kind of pushes, bashes on black folks to make himself seem, like he's more intelligent, and really has the wrong idea about what's really going on. But continue with what you were saying about, his views on kind of like, black people need to do this, black people to do that.
Yeah. And so, like, without actually exploring the deep-rooted issues with African Americans, he'll try to regurgitate the same rhetoric that a white person will say about us. Personal responsibility, being peaceful, coming together, all these things, but not understanding the deep-rooted issues within our oppressed community. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, it's just what happens, because, like, because I had to go through that growing up. I had to go through that stage earlier on. You know what I'm saying? Because growing up around majority white people, you have to really have to hold on to your knowledge of yourself. And I was blessed to be able to still do that. You know what I'm saying? I had a really good family background. You know what I'm saying? I've been to Africa. You know what I'm saying? I'm very close to my dad's side of the family. You know what I'm saying? I'm in down south with my mom's side every year. So I've never lost who I was. You know what I'm saying? And even when I was in these majority white areas, I still was with all the black kids. You know what I'm saying? I still was with my culture. I never lost it. But I can hang in both playgrounds. I can be with the white kids and be in that culture. I can be with the black kids and be in that culture. It's like it's a strategic thing. You gotta be able to work both things. If you in Canada, you should be able to speak French in Montreal, and you should be able to speak English in Toronto. You know what I'm saying? It's both cultures. So I think with Charlemagne, he's in his 30s, and he just started getting around like a different culture. And there's that illusion where, oh, everything's cool because I made it. You know what I'm saying? And bro, like, it's just you. Say something, you say one bad thing, it's over. Look at Cosby. He spent like 10 years bashing black people. And then one opportunity, you got like 30 rape accusations, bro. You know what I'm saying? And you're supposed to be quote unquote America's dad. So,
nah, but the realest thing you said though, out of all that, was the piece which when you talked about how when you start to have success as a black man in like corporate America, how you see less and less of us as you move up the ladder, and then there's more people who have different views on life and politics. And all. Like, I have one of my closest friends, man, is a white dude who works in finance, hedge fund dude. You know what I mean? Good dude. But when we start talking about politics, community, all that other stuff, like, he couldn't be way further off from reality. And more and more of those people, when you're doing well financially and doing well professionally, you're going to be surrounded by. And you're right. You do start to lose your sense of touch with the black community after a certain while, just because you don't really remember or look at other folks as
less fortunate,
as one of your own. You know what I mean? As one of your own. There's an interesting calculator that they put on the on CNNmoney.com, where it's a calculator of how close are you to the 1%, right? And what basically you do, you move the line as to what your household income is. And you see whether you're in the top 50%, top 30%, whatever. And it's so funny how fast you move out of the top, I guess, like, it's so funny how fast you move out of the middle class and you become upper middle class and I guess even lower wealthy class. Like, it doesn't take much compared to what the rest of the country is seeing. And when you start to look at your, maybe even your like 100,000 to $150,000 between you and your wife as a decent household income. Even basically 80 grand and above of household income puts you at the top third of the U.S. households. And then after that, you start to lose a little bit of touch of what's really going on with the other 60%, which is the vast majority of the country, is what they're going through and how their lives are different than yours. And it becomes a very, very slippery slope when you got guys like Charlemagne. One thing I want to quickly just, dead Charlemagne, so we got enough time to talk about Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith went on TV a couple of days ago and discussed the voting process, and was saying that black folks, we vote Democratic automatically every election, and that's to a point where nobody else is considering our viewpoints. So while I would love to see all black people vote Republican and vote for the GOP all for 1 year in the elections, just to see how that goes. I personally, same thing with the Dame Dash piece. His delivery made me completely step back, and also Stephen A. Smith has a history of bashing people of his own race, and kind of taking, a unique standpoint on things. So I did have a bit of a rocky history with Stephen A. Smith. So as soon as he said that, I was like, man, I don't even want to read this. I don't want to hear about it. But then he did get on CNN earlier. I believe it was yesterday, or was it today, Shameless?
I think it was yesterday.
And yeah, he defended himself, but I think you were more in tune with that interview than me. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but if you could explain that a little bit, I think that'd be better.
Yeah, pretty much what he was trying to relay. Even though how we came out at first, people like I myself didn't really understand where he was coming from, because it was so straightforward. Where he said every black person should vote Republican because you've been voting Democratic and you never looked at the other side. And I'm like, well, because the first thing that came to my mind is because, well, the Democratic Party has always leaned towards, people of color, because they're more in tune with the population and less about, caring about money and the 1% in business like Republicans do. So, but then when he came on CNN, he kind of touched deep into it, where he talks about how black people, mainly black people, they don't really. It's come to the point that they've voted Republican so much that it's just what they do in general when they vote. So basically, they don't even have a choice when it comes to voting, like other people are, like Hispanics or Asians or white people in general, where they just make choices on the certain parties that cater to them. Black people just automatically get stigma into, they're gonna vote the Democratic anyway, or they're gonna vote for the black person anyway. So it's come to the point where Republicans, there's like, we're not gonna get any black votes anyway, so we're not even gonna do anything. And then Democrats, even whether they're doing good or bad for the community, they're like, we're gonna get the black vote anyway. So he was trying to relay that maybe right now we should start thinking about voting Republican instead of Democratic all the time, because like Hispanic communities, they're voting Republican because the Republican Party is catering to them. They come to the Republican candidates and they're like, what are you going to do for our community? Why should we vote for you? And not a lot of black people do that. Not a lot of black communities do that, because they just automatically they don't go to the rallies, they don't go ask questions, they just automatically vote for Democrats. So I kind of got the sense what he was saying is that for so long that they've been voting Democrat, and for so long black people have not gotten the things that they deserved, or as human beings or anything. Nothing has gone right about it. So maybe you should take another approach in order for things to get better. So that's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah, I had my moments where I was wrong about Dame Dash and the point that he made, and I also had my moments where I was wrong about Stephen A. Smith and the point that he made, just because of the same reasons. I had my biases, and then also there were certain things in the ways that they delivered their information that made me kind of offended. I do think that what he said now, the way that you explained it, Shameless, and the way that it came across on CNN after he came back around, was to say that, black folks, if they automatically assume that you're going to vote for them, they don't really have to cater to you. They can just pretty much tell you some type of lie and say, oh yeah, we got this plan to help you guys out and whatever. And then, really they get in office like, all right, let me do what I wanted to do. I just had to make the black people feel like, whatever, I know I'm going to get their vote anyway. And also the Republican Party doesn't really take any time to look at, if we don't maintain this vote, it could sway either way, so let's find policies and plans that are included with them. It's done the same way with, groups of, like, the NRA. When the NRA goes to talk to political candidates, it's like, what are you going to do? And also the same way with the police force. The police force talks to candidates like, okay, what are you going to do, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. The NRA might have been a bad comparison because they always vote conservative. But I guess I can see where Stephen A. Smith is coming from, and I don't necessarily think that gets him out of the box for me of coon category, but I do think with this particular instance, like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was possibly wrong.
I mean, you have your points. You have your perspective. Not everybody's going to see it the same way as anybody else does. So, and either way, people are going to take it to an extreme, or they're gonna look at it through the medium. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for this particular subject, he definitely has some valid points. But like, that's the thing with like things that we see in the media from some of our black people. Is like, don't criticize black people because these white program directors and producers pin you against one of us. That's the thing I can't get over. And don't softball when there's white criticism that needs to be discussed. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people have a problem with and TV, and so that's usually what happens a lot. But like I feel like, because I don't know if you guys saw the one episode or the one segment where Michael Eric Dyson was on there talking about the Mark Cuban comments about the hoodie on one side of the street and the bald head with tattoos on the other side of the street. And I feel like that, Dr. Eric Dyson basically gave him this great perspective, and I think I think Stephen A. Got a little enlightened from that too. So I feel like, I feel like Charlamagne and like Stephen A. If they just had the right people in their in their interviews and give them a little game, you know what I'm saying? I think they would change for the better. I think also, I'm pretty sure that Dr. Boyce Watkins is going to be on the Breakfast Club this week, so that's going to be really interesting because he's really about like black empowerment, and he's a former finance professor at Syracuse and I think Kentucky or whatever. So he's going to really get some good game, and I hope some of these guys learn something from him.
That's going to be real. I didn't even know he was going to be on the Breakfast Club this week. I'm definitely going to check that out. That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like with those guys, Charlamagne and Stephen A. Smith, they have their cool moments, and then they have the moments where you're like not so angry as them as you normally would be. But then there's guys like Don Lemon, who are the prototype.
He's the worst
coon that you can see. Like, what do we do about somebody like Don Lemon? And for those who listen, if you're not familiar with Don Lemon is the one of the reporters, journalists, whatever you want to call it, on CNN. He's black. He constantly goes above and beyond his power, above and beyond, to try to make black folks look unintelligent, try to make us look like hoodlums, try to make us look bad. And for now, what does he have, his own show now on CNN?
He does?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep.
I think so. He has his own show just from doing that. And it's gotten to the point where it's like ridiculous. Like, I remember during the protests for Trayvon Martin, he was out in the street, or not Trayvon, excuse me, Michael Brown, I'm sorry. For Mike Brown, he was in the street and he was like, of course there is they're rioting, and of course there is marijuana I smell.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was so out of the blue, and it was just like come on, man, what are you doing? And then recently there was a discussion about the N-word with the SAE frat, and he brought on, he purposely brings on Trinidad James,
man.
Of all people in the rap community, he brings on Trinidad James, somebody who doesn't even have a record deal anymore, one-hit wonder guy, someone who isn't one of the most intelligent people, to come and discuss that, and just goes on to make him look like a fool and the best of his ability. And people like Don Lemon, I really don't know what we do to get him off of the air, because it's so frustrating, because he's a puppet. He is a puppet for I forgot the guy's name who runs CNN and half of these networks. But he also, I can't remember his name, but he's a puppet for people who are in charge, who feel some type of way about black folks, who can't get to say
supremacists, man.
And they can't say what they want to say on TV without being backlash. So they put Don Lemon there, and Don Lemon, he's like what you saw in the Jim Crow rules, where it's like, you whip them so hard, eventually they'll start to whip themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Don Lemon is the dude. You don't even have to tell him. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna do a show on that, and don't worry, I know a guy we can put. Let's go get Trinidad James, because he'll teach them a lesson. I don't even think he identifies with himself as black. Like it's sad, and I hate him. And I don't use that word often, but Don Lemon is so bad, man. And I think
about nonsense, like the SAE thing. Like they had this whole discussion about the N-word again. It's like, first of all, like they talk like those were terroristic threats. That's all. Like you're talking about hanging black people. Like if anybody if there was a Islamic frat that was talking about killing Christians, it'd be crazy. You know what I'm saying? And so like he just totally missed the boat, and not understanding like, yo, if black people all said, yo, tomorrow we're gonna stop using the N-word, you think white people would stop calling us that? No.
Oh no. Of course not. They use it way more than we do.
Like white people was calling us niggas before rap ever was invented. So like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, oh, we wouldn't. It's just a cop out. It's a cop out, and Don Lemon is like the bottom of the barrel when it comes to respectability politics, when it comes to Cooning, when it comes to like he's the worst I can think of right now.
No, there's somebody worse. There's somebody worse. Lee Daniels. He's even worse.
But that was one of his guests.
He's horrible. He's horrible. He even said like, oh, if I gotta sell out, play the game, sure. And like, and that's why like I don't understand. That's why I understand like this whole Empire phenomenon, because it's like, black people, you don't like Fox News, but since Empire is such a great show, even though it's produced by Fox, you'll still watch that garbage.
Yeah, and Lee Daniels is the same guy who's responsible for making Precious, and also is the guy who's responsible for making that movie, The Butler.
Yeah.
And both of those, if you watch them and you really see the underlying tone, it's like, even with The Butler, he took somebody who was an actual historical figure in the White House, and he made him into a house nigga. You know what I mean? He was like, yo, this was the best house nigga that the White House ever. And even in the scene of the movie, one of the dudes who was interviewing him was like, oh, he was black, and he was like, oh, you're gonna make a good house nigga. And I'm like, yo, like, is this the way that we are depicting like historical black figures? Like, granted, he worked in the White House as a butler, and that was a job that was predominantly held by black folks. But at the same time, like, do we have to make him like, I don't think he was asleep as to like, him understanding the way that the politics and the games were working in the White House. He wasn't just some guy trying to get up under every president and make sure he got a pat on the head like they made him seem in the movie. And I really got offended by that. Same thing with Precious. It was just like, yo, let's get like, he never shows black people in a successful, affluent position. It's always making my money off of struggle, black stories.
Horror stories that pander to the interested, intriguing white audience that likes destructive black stuff. That's like that's like those few episodes I saw of Empire. Like, it makes me cringe. Like when I'm hearing not the singer dude, the young rapper kid, one of the boys, and he's calling the mom just got Taraji B just got out of jail. He's calling her a bitch and all this stuff. I'm like, yo, like, come on, man. Like, this is why Cosby's shooting us down in the street, because they watch Fox News, they watch O'Reilly, and then they go watch Empire and say, oh, that's how black people act. So when I don't have any interaction with black people, when I see them down the street and they dress exactly like on that show, they talk just like that, I'm gonna shoot them if they come near me. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, pretty much.
And Dr. Boyce Watkins talks about this. If you have white people that don't have to engage with black people at all, maybe at a store or that's it, and they don't have any interaction with black people, where are they gonna get their impression of black people? Media. So this is why like all this stuff is dangerous, like putting this stuff out there. So that's why, like, that's my biggest problem with Empire. Is just like, dude, you guys got to see past all that crap, man. Like Power, yeah. I like Power. It's a well put. I think Power is a lot better than Empire. I just think it's not. I don't think Empire is like a character of like Black America when I watch that. You know what I'm saying? It's a crime drama, and there's nothing wrong with crime dramas, but it's like there's a way of going out doing it without embedding like fears and stereotypes about a certain group of people.
Yeah, it's the authenticity of the story you're trying to tell. With Lee Daniels, you always get the underlying connotation that these guys are caricatures of black folks that Lee Daniels has created. It doesn't seem like, but when you watch a show like Power, I mean, it is dealing with similar topics of like, drug dealing, and it's marketed very similar to Empire, but it's not about tearing down the image of black people.
Laws of power.
Exactly.
It definitely is, man. But it's not. I don't dig the way Lee Daniels takes black folks and he makes a caricature out of them. And like people try to compare Tyler Perry to Lee Daniels. I was like, you can't compare Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is a completely different thing. He does not bring us down as a community. Yes, he's had a couple of characters. Like a lot of people who criticize Tyler Perry haven't watched the shows. Like when people criticize Meet the Browns and they were like, look at Mr. Brown, he's just a coon. Yeah. But I'm like, yo, you're not understanding what's going on. Like look at the dude who's what's the other guy? His Brown's daughter's husband. I'm like, he's a surgeon. I'm like, Brown's daughter is like a lawyer. I'm like, his like everybody he's surrounded by is in successful positions. Even House of Pain. Like the dude what was his name? The Captain Payne or whatever, the fire chief. He was a little bit of a coon, but he was a fire chief. You know what I mean? He was recognized by the community, getting awards. His son was a father in the household that, even though the mother was having issues, he was a black father that stepped up and took care of the family when the mom was having drug problems. There's a lot of positive stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of redeeming qualities with that. Another thing too is like the reason why Tyler Perry is good too, because it's like I said, it's not a minstrel show. It's not characters. It's like, okay, it's giving you a balance of reality and the positive and the negative. And me, my mom being from the South, and my family members is from the South. Like when I see House of Pain, it's authentic because like the culture down south is kind of like that. Atlanta is kind of like that. The way they talk, the way they interact. The humor, it's all authentic. So that's why like I can't compare Tyler Perry to this. I think like Lee Daniels is just like all over the place, just trying to interject his feelings. Like it's like, okay, it's like all this dysfunction with black people, and so okay, you got the one son who's thug trying to be a rapper, the one guy's gay with a white man, and then you got the bipolar guy who's got a white woman as his wife. So it's like, what are you trying to say? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Tyler Perry, a lot of the problem is that people from up north can't understand. Well, when people hear a southern accent, they automatically jump to unintelligent idiots, whatever. And I think that's a problem.
That's the dumbest thing in the world too. You know what I'm saying? Like that people think, because that's what white people think when we use Ebonics in our black vernacular. Like that doesn't make sense. Because it's like, yo, you expect black people to speak a European language the way you do. Like that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. Like everybody has their tongue and their dialects. You know what I'm saying? How they say things. People in England speak English totally different from people that speak English here. You know what I'm saying?
They think Americans speak weird.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the weird thing.
Right, Jamaica, they speak English. You don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, everybody has their tongue. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for people to say you're dumb because you have a southern draw is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about somebody like Lee Daniels is that he profits off of problems that we have in the black community. He sees struggles, he sees issues that we may be falling short on, or somebody he knows may be falling short, or the stereotype says that we're falling short, and he says, okay, how can I make money off of that? A friend of mine made an interesting comment about a number of black filmmakers where he says each of them, you know, he has problems with a lot of black filmmakers because they have their flaws. He said something about John Singleton, the guy who made Boys in the Hood and also Baby Boy, and he was like, John Singleton, I feel like he has a complex of having strong black women in any of his films because he never has any. I thought that was an interesting observation. Then he talked about Shonda Rhimes, the chick who writes Scandal and Grey's Anatomy and How to Get Away with Murder, and he was like, you know, she has basically a shit. She just runs a shit show, and she always has a complex of black women, you know, dating white men and making sure that, you know, all of the you know what I'm saying, like this kind of weird sexual kind of complex of, you know, she kind of objectifies black women as like sexual objects. Yes, she gives them good jobs, but it always, like, everything, their success and all that, she always brings it back and trivializes it and makes it some type of sexual romance type of thing that they're based off. It's messed up. And then also he talked about there was one other person that he called out, Tyler Perry. He mentioned Tyler Perry's issues with black men being the villain in a lot of his movies. You know, kind of an issue where he feels like there's a lot of, you know, problems that Tyler Perry has pent up from, you know, his past of being maybe raped or something like that. Yeah. So that's another issue there. So it's messed up, but I think Lee Daniels takes the cake just because none of them are actually attacking their own race. Some people, it's gender things, some issues there, but I think Lee Daniels takes the cake. And like, I can't think of anything else to say that I haven't said about Lee Daniels, because, you know, he just gets on my last name.
Yeah, it's terrible, man.
Yeah.
Anything else we had to add? I know we kind of went over, but I feel like we definitely hammered in everything we wanted to
I think the listeners can wait till next week till we got some more things to talk about. I think we gave them enough tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with that.
Alright, cool. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. You'll check out our sponsors, Zombie Life, ZombieLifestyle.com. Also check out Zilla and Stush. That's with an X, ZillaandStush.com. Make sure y'all get right for the new season that's approaching. You know, definitely getting rid of this cold weather. And everybody's moving into that spring, summertime. So, you know, get your new wardrobe set. So appreciate them. Appreciate y'all tuning in. This is Holla Family Podcast. Got your boy Finesse. Thanks y'all for tuning in. Rest of the gang.
Shameless Logic here.
Peace for thought.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace.